If my understanding of the greater Mario Kart community is correct, then most people consider the fake item box to be a worse banana. After all, who would fall for one of these? Even if we ignore the upside down question mark, it's so obviously red when regular item boxes are all sorts of colors. You can't even use it to block items. What a joke, right? Well, I don't think so. There's a lot more depth behind the fake item box than people realize. So much so that I consider it to be a near perfectly designed item. Let's talk about that. Before we get into more of why I believe the fake item box is so well designed, we need to get a bearing on what we know about it first. So what do we know about the fake item box? For starters, it can be obtained primarily in higher places, such as first and third. That makes a lot of sense, since it's a much weaker item in the grand scheme of things. Second, it doesn't interact with key items. This is one half of the whole worst banana label people usually give this thing, though I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that it could actually block items in Mario Kart 64. We'll get back to that game later. Third, it looks fairly similar to a regular item box, sharing the same shape and general size, but has a much different appearance. Of course, this is because it's a fake item box. It's in the name, it's supposed to look similar. Finally, if you hit it, you flip over as if a shell hit you, rather than spin out like if you hit a banana. With that in mind, what exactly brings this to the level of well designed? Let's focus on that third point, its connection to the regular item box. Its name implies that you should put it near regular item boxes to trick people into hitting the fake one, and that's usually where the criticism against the fake item box starts. However, there's more to the fake item box's connection than there appears at first glance. To see why, we need to do some analysis on the regular item boxes. Specifically, we need to talk about where on the course they're located. Item boxes are typically found in the same few places on just about every course, before jumps, around bends, on boost panels, and sometimes on straightaways if there's some gimmick there, like the moving item boxes on N64 Bowser's Castle or the wavy section on Wii Rainbow Road. Generally, though, they take up the whole road so players don't miss them. What does this tell us about the fake item box? Intuitively, we want to place fake item boxes near real ones. What if there isn't an item set nearby? Where do we place a fake item box in that scenario? Well, what if I told you that the game has already been subtly telling you where the best place to lay traps is? Think about it. Where are people most likely to hit fake item boxes? It's not near item sets, since that's where the fake item box's red appearance betrays it the most. It's also not out in the open, randomly sitting in the middle of the road, since that's not where item boxes are usually found. Rather, fake item boxes are most likely to be hit after a turn, where you can't see it until it's right on top of you, or in really cramped areas where it's extremely hard to avoid it, like on a narrow bridge. These are areas where it makes sense for an item box to be as established earlier, but not necessarily the exact same place an item set is, since the fake item boxes stand out too much. If you start getting really good at the game, or watch people who are really good at the game, you'll even see them place fake item boxes in those types of locations, areas that opponents can't react to. But of course, you can just do the same thing with a banana, right? Just place it somewhere unreactable and boom, you have two items that do the same thing. There are a few slight problems with that though. Bananas, unlike fake item boxes, do interact with other items, most importantly shells. If you're in 5th place with triple green shells, for example, you can easily get rid of bananas in your way by simply throwing a green shell at it, or even just by running straight into it if you trust that the number of shells you have will protect you. You can't do that with the fake item box. Unless you're invincible, you're forced to swerve out of the way or get hit. There's still more to this, though. Fake item boxes are physically larger than bananas, so much so that while it is feasible to avoid bananas with precise driving, fake item boxes require much larger movements to avoid. Being forced to swerve is really punishing while racing, especially if you're forced to go wide. You lose a lot of time by doing so just as a consequence of how movement on the racetrack works. Not to mention that, as another consequence of fake item boxes being so large, they can block shortcuts outright unless you have an invincibility item. Placing one well can seriously hinder your most relevant opponent's abilities to catch up to you if you're in a top position. Now, I do concede that all of these positives being attributed to where on the course real item boxes are placed is a bit of a stretch. There's almost certainly no way the developers intended for this thought process. That's the thing, it doesn't have to be intended by the developers to still be the natural conclusion. In the Splatoon series, one of the most important movement options is a mechanic that was initially unintended, and in Minecraft, a core part of redstone machines on Java Edition only exists because of a bug that was then kept in as a feature. I don't think the leap I've made for the fake item box is all that strange. But maybe you need more convincing. After all, an item can have a niche and still not be a well designed item. The blooper is all the evidence needed to demonstrate that. So let's talk about the real reason why the fake item box is so well designed. It's so important to the core parts of Mario Kart that every game after it was removed has weakened the Mario Kart games without it. Let's talk about the fake item box's role before it even appears in your item slot. In Mario Kart 7, every item you can obtain in first can be used to block a red shell. Two of them, Triple Bananas and the Super Leaf, can block multiple red shells each. The nail in the coffin is the bottom screen's item spy, which allows all players to see when someone has a pivotal item, such as a blue shell or lightning. Because of this, Mario Kart 7's item system is very heavily favored towards front running, the playstyle where once you get in first, you stay in first. Nothing short of a blue shell or lightning can stop players from running away with the game before it's even started, but if you know that they're coming, you can plan for them and soften the blows when they land. Ultimately, there's no punishment for spamming all of your items back against the players behind you. You'll always get another one that can defend against whatever they can throw at you. This is one aspect of why the fake item box is so incredibly important. It can't interact with shells. When there's a threat of not being able to defend against a red shell, it makes the defensive items you do get all the more important, and not knowing when you'll get a fake item box adds to it. Once the defensive items you do have are more important, you're less likely to throw them away and get a new item, since at any point it could be a fake item box and prevent you from holding first as easily. But since you're not placing those items, it means the players behind you can get closer much more easily. And since the players behind you can get closer, blue shells become more deadly, as you might lose your lead to the people behind you getting mushrooms to take shortcuts. This is the key to the fake item box's importance. It is one of the most important items in a race simply because First does not want to get hit by a red shell. By allowing First to be vulnerable, the race becomes more fair, and the gameplay in First becomes a balance between ensuring safety now and ensuring a win later. But this design philosophy doesn't work unless First can still play off of their vulnerability. I'm sure some of you thought of another item while I was talking about the fake item box's key role the coin. It was brought back in Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to fill in the role for the fake item box. Just like the fake item box, the coin cannot defend against red shells, and simply getting one makes First more vulnerable. However, there are key differences that prevent the coin from actually fulfilling its job properly. For one, the chance that you get a coin in first is extremely high. Unless you already have a coin as an item, the chance you get one in first is nearly 70% after 20 seconds have passed in the race. In the first 20 seconds of the race, that chance is even higher at nearly 75%. The fake item box, on the other hand, has only a 20% chance of being pulled in first, regardless of when in the race you are. As such, getting a coin as an item isn't so much a threat as much as it is a guarantee. Now, I did specify that those chances are only if you don't already have a coin, but if you have a coin, the quote unquote damage has already been done. You, in first, are already vulnerable, since second could always get two red shells. But the second part of this is a bit more damning for the coin. What exactly are you supposed to do with a coin once you get one? With the fake item box, we've established that you can use it to force people to swerve wide on turns or block shortcuts so they can't be used. When it comes to the coin, there's very little depth to the forts. The most amount of strategy that comes from it is that you hold on to it in your first item slot to prevent your actual defensive item from being stolen. That's a valid strategy, but it's not one that tests First's ability to hold the top spot. All it serves to do is prevent First from doing more interesting things, whereas the fake item box is both something First doesn't want, but can use effectively. The last flaw with the coin is that using it isn't even that helpful to First. It adds 2 to the racer's coin count when used, which sounds useful since having more coins makes you go faster. But there's a limit of 10 coins that can be collected at once, and while you're in first, you already get first dibs to the coins scattered across the track. You're effectively going to have a maxed out coin count at all times, so why bother with the coin item? This is why the fake item box works. It hinders the ability for First to hold on to their lead by making it harder to defend against red shells, but First can still use it in clever ways that actually do still help, which makes it more than just a dummy item or a worse banana. It's a fundamental part of why the item balance of games like Mario Kart Wii work, where other item systems in more recent games simply don't. I promised we'd come back to Mario Kart 64 though, because the one game where the fake item box actually does interact with shells. I'm not sure how I feel about this change, since on one hand it makes First far less likely to get hit by red shells, and with how dumb red shells are in that game, That aspect is only compounded. But let's be real here. For better or for worse, Mario Kart 64 is nothing like the rest of the series. One look at the CPUs is enough to tell you that, and if they don't convince you, its Rainbow Road surely will. Nintendo was far from done perfecting the item system because they were far from perfecting anything with the series at that time. After all, you could get lightning in second in that game. In conclusion, the fake item box's design is a fundamental part of Mario Kart. It prevents first from running away with the game simply for being in the front, but still allows for unique and creative plays that make it distinct from the other items you can get in first. Without it, item balance is significantly more challenging, and it accomplishes all of this without needing to look like a real item box. After all, it isn't one.